record the training, and the recording will be uploaded to our district YouTube channel later tonight, so that you all can get the link, but then others who were not able to attend tonight will be able to watch it. We're going to go ahead and do introductions, and we'll just kind of go across the Zoom screen here. If I call out your name, please just give us your name, club, and your incoming role. And then we'll do a few Zoom etiquette items in terms of how we'll go through the training, and then we'll turn it over to Tom and Deborah. So with that, we will start with Tom and Deborah. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves first, please?
All right. Well, I'm Tom.
And I'm Deb.
And we are in the Rotary Club of Santa Fe.
So, throughout the training, we cannot be distracted by how cute they are. Which is, we have to focus on the content.
Okay.
You can be distracted. That's all right.
My name is Jeff Weinrack, and I am district trainer for Governor-elect Sonny, and I'm serving as kind of the Zoom host for tonight. Donna.
Hi, Donna Fedacci in the Del Norte Club, and I'm on the grants committee. Kim had asked me to fill in for her tonight, but I see she's here, so I'm not sure. But if she stays, I'll drop out.
I'm sorry, Donna. I meant the Rotary meeting.
Oh, you said foundation. I will leave all of you wonderful people and I'll go join my club.
What are we
Sorry.
We love you, Donna.
Yeah.
All of you too. Guys, take care.
Bianca.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cheney. I'm from the Roswell Rotary Club, and I am the newest board member taking over July. Actually, somebody left last month, and so I'm on the board, but I don't know much about being on a club board.
So thank you.
Glad to have you. Thank you.
Tom. Walker.
Yep. Albuquerque Foundation Chair, Zone Dubits, and the club foundation chair.
Thank you very much for joining us, Tom. John.
John Morrison. I'm the foundation chair for the Socorro Rotary Club.
Thank you, John. Linda.
Yes, Los Alamos vice president, and I'm here just to learn more about Rotary in general.
Thank you, Linda. Bill.
You're on mute.
Let me unmute. I'm Bill Hardy. I'm in the Las Cruces Club, and I'm the club treasurer and also the foundation chair.
Excellent, thank you. Danny?
I'm Danny Cross, and from the Carlsbad Club, and I am the incoming foundation chair.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Danny. Yale.
Yes, sir. Let's see if I'm okay. I am Yale Jones. I live in Taos. I have had all sorts of Rotary jobs having to do with my club and the district and the foundation. I was the Paul Harris Society chair for our district for 3 years. And I feel pretty familiar with what the foundation does. But I want to see, I'm sure that there's more I can learn.
Thank you, Yale.
And I'll be the incoming foundation chair starting July 1st.
Perfect, thank you. Geneva?
Hi, Geneva Van Meter. I'm from El Paso with the Zaragoza Rotary, and I'm going to be the incoming secretary.
Oh, excellent, thank you. Patrick?
I'm the president-elect of the Alamogordo Rotary Club. I will start on July 1, and I'm just getting more information. Hi, Norm.
Hey, Pat.
Thank you. Ed?
Yes, Ed Robertson, president-elect, Rotary Del Sol, Albuquerque.
Thank you, Ed. Tim?
Tim Langley from the Rotary Club of Santa Fe. I'm about to begin my 4th year as the club's foundation chair.
Excellent, thank you. Laura.
So I'm Laura Gonzalez. I'm the president-elect for the Los Alamos Club, and I started on the board as the foundation chair, so it's near and dear to my heart, and we don't have a foundation chair yet, so I'm going to collect all the good new information and bring it back to that person when we get them.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Sunny?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny Kellerman from the Rotary Club of Silver City, New Mexico. And on July 1st, I will be your district governor.
Thank you. Kim?
So I'm Kim Helm. I am the foundation chair for the Albuquerque Del Norte Club. I'm going to be stepping down, but Corey and I decided we would do this together. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. Corey and friend.
Yes, as of July, I will be, I think, the foundation chair or helping Kim in tandem for the Del Norte Club.
And who's your friend?
Oh, this is Foxy. She's got the best mohawk ever.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is the reverse mohawk.
Exactly. Debbie and Gordon.
Yes, we're here again together tonight. All this togetherness, you know, in the coronavirus quarantine is kind of fun. I'm the Lieutenant Governor for Northern New Mexico, so I'm just trying to learn more about all the functions. And Gordon is President-elect, so he is also trying to learn more about all the functions. We do not have a clearly named foundation chair yet, but we are hoping our treasurer will be willing to take that responsibility.
Excellent. Thank you.
We're from Angel Fire, by the way.
Okay.
Norm.
Yeah, I finally got this thing to work. I had to download an update.
Oh. Well, Rick, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll get the last few. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm Rick Akins, past district governor, and I'm foundation chair for my club.
Thank you for joining us, Rick. Norm?
Norm Arnold, Alamogordo Rotary Club. I'll be working with the foundation chair. I think that's all you need.
Excellent. Thank you. Nelson?
Hi, this is Nelson Calzadillo from Camino Real Rotary Club. I'm the present foundation chair and incoming foundation chair.
Thank you, Nelson. And Marley?
Hi, I'm Marley Rainey, and I'm from Clovis Rotary Club, and I'm the foundation chair.
Excellent. Thank you, Marley. And Stephen Stouse, go ahead. We're just doing introductions, so just name, club, and what your incoming role is going to be.
Well, name Steve Stouse, downtown Santa Fe, Rotary Club. And I'm not quite sure how to answer the incoming role question. Maybe
well, I
after,
invited Steve because he's on our international committee, and he's quite involved with looking at the Mexican grants that we do.
Perfect.
Thank you, Deborah.
I know.
Okay, so a few Zoom etiquette items. We have a reasonably sized group. If we start hearing feedback, we're going to mute everyone except Tom and Deborah.
Why are we reversed?
I'm sorry? So again, if we hear feedback, we're going to mute everyone. So Tom and Deborah will present. They'll kind of explain how we want to be doing questions during the assembly. If we do mute you, there are two ways to ask a question. One is to type it into the chat, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen. And the other is if you click on the participants button at the bottom of your screen, you'll see all the participants who are on tonight. And at the bottom right, there's a button that says raise hand. And if you click on that, a little blue hand will show up in your window, and that will send a signal to us that you have a question. We would then say, okay, so-and-so has a question. You would then unmute yourself and ask your question. And again, we'll do that if we need to mute everyone except for Tom and Deborah. And again, this will be interactive, and And with that, I will turn it over to Tom and Deborah Simon.
Okay. All right, so let me go ahead, share our screen. And hopefully you can all see that. I just want to thank everybody for being with us this evening. It is really pretty awesome seeing everybody here. It's it's one thing to just talk to you on the phone and so forth and read about you in the district newsletter, but it's pretty amazing seeing everybody together in this way. Almost as good as a district conference, but not quite. Let's see. So I'm Tom Simon. This is my lovely wife, Deborah. And I gave myself an inadvertent promotion to lieutenant governor. I'm actually an AG, not an LG. And past president of Rotary Club of Santa Fe and former Global Grants Chair.
I'm the past president of the Rotary Club of Espanola, but I'm now a member and have been a member for some time now with the Rotary Club of Santa Fe. I'm a past foundation chair with Santa Fe. And I love working with the foundation. So I'm really glad to be here with you tonight.
So we're gonna, from time to time, ask you some questions. We're asking that you do hold your questions for us till the end. And I'm fine with everybody being unmuted so long as, you know, Sonny and Linda don't get too rowdy and Tom Walker doesn't get too rowdy. I'm fine with that. Jeff, you too. But it's nice to hear everybody and be here with you today.
Now, what's going to happen though is that we are going to do some questions just to make sure you're awake and following what we're doing. So you'll be able to shout it out that we're looking for.
Exactly. So learning objectives, we're here to talk about the Rotary Foundation. And among other things, we're going to be discussing how your club contributions flow through the Rotary Foundation and come back to you in the form of district and global grants. We're also going to talk about how DDF works within the district and how the coming together of all of our contributions to the annual fund come back to the district after 3 years. We're also looking at your role. Well, some of you are from large clubs, some are from small clubs. We're going to talk in generalities, and then hopefully later in the presentation, we'll get into some of the specifics about how each of you function in your clubs. We're going to talk about how to access and use the resources that are available to you at Rotary.org so you can be of service to your board members and your club members, and strategies for increasing giving. You all know who this man is, Paul Harris. Can anyone tell us what year Rotary started? Don't all talk.
1905.
1905.
Deborah, do you know the answer?
I thought it was 1904.
So did I.
1905.
Because I thought we celebrated the centennial in 04, but maybe I'm mistaken. Okay.
Well, we have a lot of great people on this in this group who probably know as much as we do, if not more. So we're happy to have your corrections and answers. Anyway, we're going to be talking more about this gentleman, Mr. Arch Klump, who said we should not live for ourselves alone, but for the joy in doing good for others, which remains really the central concept of who we are as Rotarians, doing good in the world in service above self. Can anyone say when he started the Rotary Foundation?
1917.
Yeah.
And what was the first contribution to the Rotary Foundation?
$26.50 left over from the Kansas City convention.
And Rick, what is that amount worth today?
Well, I think it's what, 600 billion or something like that.
No, you know, I was curious about that 2650 and where it came from. So I did a little bit of research, and because it seems like a fairly small amount, but in 2020 dollars, it turns out it's over $500 today. So yeah, So it wasn't just pocket change at the time.
So what exactly is the Rotary Foundation today? It is the charitable arm of Rotary International. It is supported solely by voluntary contributions, and we do it to share Arch Clump's view of a better world. People can support the Rotary Foundation and its projects by contributing to 3 main funds. Anybody who's not part of the district team can answer that question.
Like, what are the main funds?
Okay, I guess we better go to Rick.
Hold on, I got it.
What was it?
I
Yeah,
just
wasn't.
I had it before, I just couldn't unmute myself fast enough.
Oh.
So this is
You already got him up there.
Facts and dexterity.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yes, the main funds then are the annual fund, the endowment fund, and Polio Plus. So we're going to talk about each of those. And we're going to start with the Polio Fund. In 1985, we made a promise to the world's children that we would immunize them against polio in the hopes of eradicating polio from the face of the earth. For over 35 years, we've been working with organizations, business partners, communities, and with lots of volunteers who have gone out and done the vaccinations. And you know the story. Much of the world is free of polio, but we still are raising money. We have been able to raise over 2.1 billion over the last 35 years toward polio. And there have been thousands of hours given by the volunteers. We've heard a lot about the efforts to eradicate polio and just, how close we are. And it's easy to get complacent. But currently, there's another side to this story. The alarming truth is that polio rates are increasing again. And I don't know if you see the blue hot spots over here. The blue spots represent wild polio cases. And so, as you probably know, those are primarily in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And vaccinations have been difficult to do there primarily because of political unrest and terrorism, quite frankly. Now, what are these yellow dots? The yellow dots represent what is called circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus. And there's some of that up in the Middle East, but you see a lot more cases in Central Africa. This type of polio occurs in a population that is somewhat under immunized. And that can happen because they didn't manage to get all the children in one particular area. And so if there is enough susceptible children that excrete the polio derived poliovirus, then that can begin circulating in the community. If the vaccine is able to circulate for a prolonged period of time, like between 12 and 18 months, then there's going to be outbreaks of polio again. And that's what we're seeing.
Excuse me, can I just interrupt for 1 second? We've had a couple of people mention that one of you is a little bit soft on the mic. Is there a way you can get closer to the mic by any chance?
Is that me?
Yes.
Okay, let's put this over here more maybe.
Sure.
Where is the mic?
It's probably up in there somewhere.
Oh, okay. Okay, can you hear me any better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. This next chart. Okay. This chart compares the rate of the wild poliovirus and the CVDPV virus cases in the first 5 months of last year compared to the first 5 months of this year. And you can see then that it increased from 37 cases to 59 in the wild polio virus, a 60% increase, and 33 to 111, a 236% increase. And there is a website that you can go to, and I have it written down below here, that tells you week by week what is the status of the polio virus at any given time. There's a good Netflix series. You may have heard of this particular gentleman. It's called Inside Bill Gates' Brain. Have any of you heard of this series? Yeah, it's 3 episodes. It's each episode is about an hour long. The first episode is about his efforts to improve with clean water and sanitation. And the second episode deals with the eradication of polio. And he was very frustrated. He couldn't figure out why we couldn't just get this done. And he, in addition to the issues related to the terrorism that was going on in the Middle East, and also in Nigeria with Boko Haram reinsurging, the other thing he found out is that there weren't any good maps for a lot of these areas in Africa. He tried to find a good map of Nigeria, and the most recent one he could find was done by the British back in 1945. So since then, there had been a big increase in the amount of population and communities. And so if there's no map, then the people that were vaccinating weren't even aware that these communities existed. So he tried to download maps from satellites and all to try to improve that situation. So we are pretty knowledgeable or familiar with the idea of giving individually toward polio. But I just recently learned that our district, through the DDF funds, also gives to polio. Usually they give between 10,000 to 25,000 every year. So that was good to know. And in our district, the go-to person to end polio now is Linda Woodward. And you know, she'd probably be a very good person to come and do an educational presentation to your club, or you could do it as well. And also there's good information on rotary.org videos. So a question, what month do Rotarians focus on polio?
October.
Hey, okay,
Right,
you guys
great.
are on that one. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about these funds, annual fund, world fund, etc., and district designated funds. Unless you specify otherwise, your personal and club donations to the foundation go automatically into the annual fund. It's in the annual fund that provides the money that we use for our projects today. The total annual fund giving from each Rotary district is pooled together and invested for 3 years. During that, I was going to ask you that, but everybody, you guys are too smart. You're going to know that.
Well, you had already mentioned it anyway.
I know. During that time, the investment earnings have been historically used to pay for the administrative costs of running the foundation. Now, at the end of 3 years, 50% goes to back to the district in the form of DDF, or district designated funds, for our member clubs and for their projects. So the funds that we have access to this year are a result of our contributions 3 years ago. The funds are used toward district and global grants, among other programs. The other 50% goes to the World Fund, which provides matches to our global grants, a necessary funding for high priority activities around the globe, such as disaster relief, for example. So this is not a session on district and global grants per se. We're going to go into some detail on those. But since much of the DDF goes toward grants, we need to mention a little bit about them. This picture is an example of a district grant to construct ramps for the disabled. And let me ask you this question. What are 2 criteria that will allow your club to be eligible to receive DDF funds for a project?
For a district grant.
For a district grant. What are 2 criteria that you need to meet?
Do you have to have like a certain amount of money that you put in based on $100 per member? Is that it?
That's really close, Bianca. That's generally, yes, that's the case.
It's the every Rotarian every year.
Okay.
No,
Well, you have to have contributed money 3 years ago to the annual fund in order to receive money this year.
This year, but it's still it's the average of $100 per club member.
When you do that, when you average 100, you get additional money. You get what they call a kicker, and we're not going to get into those details.
Okay.
Deborah tells us we don't do kickers anymore, but anyway, the more money you give to the annual fund 3 years ago or any year, you are eligible to receive money 3 years later.
The more you give, the more you get.
The other criteria is that you have to have at least 2 people from your club that have attended grant training. That's real important because you need to understand the issues around receiving a grant in terms of stewardship and so forth. So those 2 criteria need to be met in order to receive a district grant for an approved project.
There actually are clubs that don't give at all. And so it doesn't seem fair then that they would, be able to take money from the DDF funds for community projects. So that's what that's all about. And sometimes only one person from the club attends the district grants training. And if you only have one person, then that disqualifies them. So it's really important as foundation chairs that you make sure that your club is meeting the criteria to qualify for these community grants.
And there are no more of those trainings for this fiscal year, but I'm sure it'll start again in 2020, 2021. There's also quite a bit of leeway with regard to the type of grant the type of project that the district will approve for a grant. If you plan to apply for district grant for this coming fiscal year, please ideally get your grant request in by June 1st, which we're now past. At the latest, it needs to be in by June 15th. That's the deadline. Community projects can be a lot of fun because most of the club members can participate in some form. And we're kind of curious to hear, because so many of it, we're curious to hear what district grants you're working on that maybe you've already applied for in the district. And I'm sure it'd be beneficial for all of us to hear from some of you about what district grants you've applied for. So who would like to contribute to that?
We applied for a health and peace grant because typically we focused on education, but we decided this year with everything going on with the pandemic and the serious need for food that was a huge issue in northern New Mexico. And so that's what our plan is this year. And we know based on 3 years ago that we had a significant amount of funding going into the foundation. So we're thinking we can really utilize that funding in an effective way to help northern New Mexico out.
Excellent. And what club is that?
Los Alamos.
Okay. Wonderful. Anybody else?
So I will share with you, we are doing, and we've been doing it for a couple of years now. We provide school backpacks filled with food for the weekend for students that are in a Title I school. We feed, we expect that we're going to be doing this for about 70 students this next coming year.
Okay, Kim, thank you.
Any other ideas?
Yeah,
Doesn't
Santa
even,
Fe Club has applied successfully for the last, I think, 3 years for a golf tournament whose proceeds benefit high school students. It's a college scholarship program. And as the last speaker said, we didn't apply for it this year because of the COVID disruption, but it had been about a 2 or 3 year running program.
you know, one of the things we ought to clarify, and I think this is where our club, because I'm in the same club you are, Tim, is that we were thinking that we had to raise part of the money for a district grant. Turns out we don't have, so we didn't need the golf tournament this year. We could still have applied for the district grant.
So just to add to that, it used to be that the district offered a matching grant, and that's no longer the case. You can just apply for a worthy project and the funds come to you because of your contribution that you made 3 years prior. And in any fundraisers, such as Rotary Club of Santa Fe did with their golf tournament, we can just add to the money that the district provided to
That's
give
true.
that much more
Yeah.
for scholarships for seniors going into college. So thank you for your feedback. Let's go on to the next
Okay.
subject.
I'm kind of into global grants, so I thought I would take this one. Global grants are, and I know that most of you have done global grants, and we've done them together, actually. So the global grants are for projects that are going to be done between at least 2 foreign or international clubs. So one can be from here in Mexico or here in Bangladesh or whatever. And the criteria to apply for a global grant is rather stringent. We're going to look at that in just a bit. And the funding for that can come from individuals, clubs, DDF, and the Rotary Foundation. So to qualify for a global grant, it has to be a grant about one of these 6 different subjects or areas of focus: preventing disease, providing clean water, supporting education, growing local economies, saving mothers and children, and promoting peace. And here you can see the dollar amounts that have been allocated or have been approved for each type, each area of focus. I was really surprised to see this. I had thought maybe clean water or education would be the biggest, but it's actually preventing disease. It's almost more than half of the next one of water. And so you can imagine how much bigger it's going to be next year with the pandemic going on. I put in this particular slide because it really illustrates the true power of a worldwide network like Rotary that can bring clubs, countries, and beneficiaries together to make a lasting difference in the world. And so this is one that the Rotary Club of Espanola did, I believe, several years ago. And it was a water and sanitation project for $118,436. And at that time, the club only had 10 members. So by coming together with other clubs and districts, we were able to do something really significant. And as I look at these different clubs on the list here, many of you represent those clubs. And I mentioned that there was 4 different districts that participated. So in addition to ours, you see the Phoenix 100, the Tulsa South Side, and the Nordeste in Guatemala. The other thing I want to point out is this, Uspantan County, and that's $48,236 that they gave. Now, who is that? Well, those are the beneficiaries. They gave the labor at the skilled labor and the unskilled labor, digging the trenches, and they also did the surveys and all of that. And that was really important. They were really vested in this, not only in the construction, but also they're going to value it a lot and provide the maintenance. We got 10,000 from DDF, and the match from the Rotary Foundation was about 25,000. So this is really a great way to really leverage the money and work in partnerships. That being said, I now have some somewhat difficult information to give you that just happened this last week, and I'm just going to read it verbatim. This is from Abby McNair with the Rotary Foundation. She's telling us that the Global Grant Program has been very successful and has grown at an incredible pace since its launch in 2013. This growth, however, means that we can expect the demand for global grants to dramatically exceed the capacity of the World Fund. Because of this, the trustees of the Rotary Foundation have decided that World Fund resources will be used to match only district-designated contributions. This match will remain at 100%. The match on cash contributions, in other words, that the clubs and individuals give to grants, will be eliminated effectively July 1st, 2020. Global grant applications that have been submitted but not yet approved on July 1st will receive the World Fund match for cash and contributions. This means that rather than getting that 50 cents to each of our dollars that we gave as individuals or clubs, it's not going to happen from the Rotary Foundation. Now, I don't want you to feel too discouraged though, because we have a really dynamic district foundation team. And I would really encourage you to talk to Tom Walker if it's a global grant, and just see what he can do to work with you on making sure you get the funding that you need. You may be asking yourselves from time to time, well, where can I find someone from or a club from another country to partner with? And one of the easiest ways that we can do it in our district is by attending the by-district conference that's held each year. This year it will be in El Paso, October 23rd and 24th. And it's a chance for District 5520 to get to know some of the projects in Mexican District 4110. And probably most of you have attended at one time or another. But if you haven't, it's kind of interesting. They have a big room with lots of booths, and people kind of mill around, and you get a chance to talk to them about what their grant proposal is. At this point, they're all proposals. And as you go around and take notes, be sure to ask really relevant questions. Ask questions that give you an idea if they know what they're doing, if they know what the criteria is to get a global grant. For example, ask them what area of focus they see this falling into. You might want to ask them, is this sustainable? What's going to happen? How will this program keep going after it's put in place? Was a needs assessment done, and what did that look like? We make a habit of selecting either 4 or 5 grants from that group that's there. And the reason is because quite a few of these don't really progress very far. So we want to at least be able to support 1 or 2 projects. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th may or may not happen. So at least we've got something that we can contribute to 4110. Last year, we came back with all our little write-ups about the grants we wanted to support. And then when we met with our international partners to talk more about them, we realized we forgot to get any contact information on these clubs. So be sure to do that. And Sunny, if I may suggest that you maybe provide a place on the official form so that we get the telephone number and, you know, who's the president at least of the club and an email address to remind us.
We'll definitely do that. Thanks, Deborah. And I wanted to mention too that we're invited to bring our projects to that group as well and look for some international partners. And and our Governor Tom has invited 2 other districts to join us this year.
Oh, fantastic.
Southern Colorado and West Texas have been invited to at least come and observe and perhaps participate. So this could be a really exciting one. And we think it'll have a virtual component no matter what, so that we can actually consult with our clubs who are back home and make decisions faster.
So maybe we're going back to a tri-district, which we used to have.
Right, or quattro.
Yeah.
Quattro.
I couldn't figure out quad district. So.
So, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is, and that's why I put, you know, the fellowship picture in there, because it's really terrific. Meeting with the Mexican Rotarians, and you know, they know how to party. You know, it's a lot of fun.
They do.
Yeah. Some years ago, I was trying to figure out, well, where can people go? This is actually before by district started, but I was looking for other countries where we could do global grants. And I found a place on Rotary.org where all of the clubs that were looking for partners are listed. So let's say you wanted to do something in Cameroon. You know, you can go to the Rotary District and see the clubs that are looking for partners. Back then when I was looking, I found the one that stuck with me was one for the island of St. Lucia. And they were looking for people for a grant, to help with a grant to teach youth how to sail. So, and I think the point of that was more like a vocational grant, teaching them, you know, how to do that. That was kind of cool.
Not sure we get approved nowadays.
No, probably not.
Okay, so we're going to look into DDF funds just a little bit more. In the year 2018-2019, the District 5520 received $296,557. Of those funds they used, you could see on the slide, $61,778 for district grants and $80,668 for global grants. Whenever you have a global grant, you know there's always going to be a foundation, Rotary Foundation match
to the DDF.
To the DDF. So that's not the entire set of grants. The grants themselves were much more. But that's kind of the way the district grant funds got allocated. You may be wondering what else was funded with the remaining, what, $150-some thousand. And we'll discuss that a little bit more in upcoming slides.
Yeah. So let's look at the grants for this year, year to date. And Tom Walker, is this still correct? There were 6 grants approved and 6 pending the last time we talked.
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, and so with the global grants that were approved, there was a COVID-19 one for PPE for hospitals in Guatemala, and 7 clubs joined in to make that grant happen. There were 2 that had to do with scholarships, and that was from Santa Fe del Sol and Albuquerque, Rio Grande. There was a nursing education one from Albuquerque del Norte, a mobile clinic one from Gallup, and one related to preventing eye diseases, again by Del Norte. I am going to right now take advantage of being one of the moderators here tonight and let you know that there is another COVID-related grant that is available in Guatemala. A club contacted me a few days ago looking for partners in our district to do another COVID grant, COVID related. And we had already done the other one, so our club wasn't in a position to do it. But if your club, or if you know of a club that is interested in doing that and having some other partners participate, Guatemala will write it and put it together, but they do need an international primary partner. So just putting it out there. There were 35 district grants done in our district for 118,000. And again, you know, we have 67 clubs in our district, and only 35 took advantage of the grants. So hopefully as foundation chairs, you will really get on that pretty quickly in the year so that you don't miss out on a great community grant. And it's not only because of the impact that it has, but but it's an opportunity for your club to have a sense of camaraderie working together on a community grant.
So let's talk a little bit about the COVID-19 specific grant approvals. This is a worldwide figure, and it just struck Deborah and I as particularly current, obviously, for obvious reasons. And I thought it might be interesting for us to share it with you. New applications approved, and these are all COVID-19 grants worldwide, 166 with a total of 13,590,778. Another thing that's been happening lately is repurposed grants. So global grants repurposed that were originally for something else were repurposed for COVID-19. That's 41 grants worldwide for 409,000. And then disaster response grants, there were 199 and almost $5 million worth of those. So in just a few months, all of this has come together through the power of Rotary. An example of a repurposed grant is what the Torreon Club in 4110 did. They had originally developed a global grant for the purpose of adult daycare and physical therapy services that 3 clubs from our district signed up to be partners with. When the pandemic hit Mexico, they realized that there was an urgent need for COVID-related grants in their city. They contacted their original partners in Santa Fe and elsewhere in our district and got their permission to redesign the project completely to instead provide ventilators and PPE for their hospital.
I think that was Del Norte in Albuquerque downtown.
Okay. So other programs supported by the World Fund and districts include the lists you see: youth exchange, peace scholarships, RILA, disaster relief, and new generations, with some caveats here. For example, let's see, the DDF may be used for any Rotary Foundation purpose. This is a result of an ongoing conversation that Deborah and I have had with District Foundation Chair Tom Walker. So Tom, if you want to chime in on anything, please feel free. The DDF funds can be used for any purpose, but the District 5520 doesn't necessarily apply it for just anything. For example, the district supports Polio Plus if, as Deborah mentioned earlier, if the budget permits, in the $10,000 to $25,000 range, depending upon the availability of funds. And it could be used for disaster relief or peace scholarships as well. DDF doesn't fund RILA directly, but a club can request a DDF fund or district grant to cover the cost of one or more students to participate in RILA. Regarding peace and other scholarships, the district prefers actually to let clubs identify worthy scholarship recipients and then will assist through the global grant program. So DGF funds can be applied to that, but only if it's through a global grant as opposed to some sort of a district grant. Deborah, do you have anything to add to that?
I just want to clarify with Tom Walker, if that's really the case with the Peace scholarships, or is that more with regular college scholarships?
The Peace program is separately funded.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And that's where that stuff comes from. For clubs that choose to sponsor young folks going overseas in a manner roughly similar to the old ambassadorial scholar program, unlike every other district that I'm aware of, we actually process it as a regular global grant, which means clubs put money into it. Everybody else makes it a solely funded operation of the district, and we're just not set up to do that.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, let's talk about Peace scholarships.
So I want to go into a little bit more detail on Peace scholarships. I personally think that this is one of the most important initiatives Rotary sponsors. When you consider that polio runs rampant in areas where there is armed conflict, promoting peace is all the more important in support of the other goals of Rotary. Rotary each year awards up to 130 fully funded two-year master's fellowship for dedicated leaders to study in one of 6 peace centers around the world. The program provides academic training, global networking opportunities, teaching students of the program to become experienced and effective catalysts for peace. The fellowship covers tuition and fees, room and board, round-trip transportation, and all internships and field study experiences. Since the program began in 2002, Rotary Peace Centers have trained more than 1,300 fellows who now work in more than 115 countries. Many serve as leaders in government, NGOs, the military, education, law enforcement, and international organizations such as the United Nations and the World Bank. Our district has been fortunate to have several Peace Scholars selected over the years. And for more information, Allison Pinnell in the Los Alamos Rotary Club is the chair of the Peace Scholarship for the district. So we've looked at the polio fund, we've looked at the annual fund. The third fund that we wanted to touch base on is the endowment fund, which supports Rotary's future. The most common way people give to the endowment fund is remembering the Rotary Foundation in their final estate plans, but you can also give an outright gift to the endowment. The endowment fund's net assets and expected contributions are more than $1 billion. The funds are invested and the earnings can either go back to your district or the World Fund, or to the World Fund to help support humanitarian initiatives through Rotary. The major difference between the endowment and other Rotary funds is that the principal is never spent. It remains permanently in the endowment, generating income for investments in Rotary's future. That's why it's also referred to quite often as the permanent fund. So the endowment fund, permanent fund are the same thing.
So looking at the impact, from these 3 funds, over $300 million have been spent on Rotary programs and that's in 2018. This has been made possible for Rotary to have a huge impact in the world. It's the impact of doing good in the world that is supporting all of this. It's been said that if there's no money, there's no mission. If there's no mission, there's no money. Rotary has the mission, but we need the money to fulfill the mission. So that's a lot of what the foundation chair is going to be doing. So leaving the topic of the funds for a little bit, we're going to talk about the education component of the club foundation. You can educate, most of your club members aren't going to know very much at all about these subjects that we're talking about today. So this is an opportunity to bring them some new information. It might be something good. You could do it as a regular presentation in your club, or you could do it at an assembly. So you could talk about the 3 main funds, update on polio, how to become a bequest member. And this is our good friend, our district friend, Greg Pod, giving one of these talks on the foundation. And so you can arrange for Rotary speakers, or you can go to rotary.org and be able to pull up a video or a PowerPoint, other information on these different subjects that you think would benefit and educate your members. Most clubs really know very little about the bigger picture of the Rotary Foundation and find it somewhat fascinating to learn about it. Here's a topic that they often don't understand. This is a very rudimentary Rotary organizational chart. And you see these 4 levels. And most club members only know about their club. That was my experience when the first few years that I was a member. And thankfully, the Espanola Club back then required all new members to attend the district conference. So when Henry Pick was the incoming governor, I went to district conference, and I was floored by what all is going on in Rotary. It's not just about my little club. You know, there is such a wealth of really exciting things going on that can impact the world. So we're going to go up. So then I'm talking here to people from the district. So you pretty much know what the district is all about. Our district encompasses the state of New Mexico and West Texas. That being said, though, some districts aren't just a whole state like ours. There can be many districts in fact, in most states, especially in California and Texas, lots of districts. On the other hand, in Central America, those are small areas with not very many clubs. And so, for example, one district in Guatemala and in Central America consists of the countries of Guatemala, Honduras, and Belize. And they rotate from which country the next district governor is going to come from. Now, the zone. I think that's probably one of the most mysterious things. I didn't know about zones. I guess probably
a few years ago.
10 years ago or
when
so.
we went to zone conference.
Well, before, yeah. But there are, so at the zone level, it encompasses lots of districts. There are 34 zones worldwide, and there are 9.5 in just the United States. And one purpose of the zone meeting is for Rotary leaders to meet and discuss and recommend legislation and policy that then is forwarded on to the Rotary Foundation. There's a lot of give and take there. And if anyone who has attended the zone wants to expound more on it, this is your opportunity.
Governor Tom, since you're a zone coordinator for us, perhaps you'd like to take this one.
Well, the zone, just like the district, mirrors the organization of the individual clubs. So if you have a foundation committee, there's a foundation committee, a district, and a foundation representative. In this case, I am District 5520's Assistant Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator. Similarly, there's a similar organization for membership, branding, and so forth. The zone primarily has a couple functions. Number one, it's for training and support of districts. So, for instance, district governors have to go to governor's school. It's called GETS, Governor-elect Training Seminar, just like PETS, the district level for presidents. The other thing that they do is that they elect directors. So Deborah told you there are 34 zones. There are 17 directors. Each zone is paired. So if you look in the western part of the United States on this view graph, we're in zone 26, which is that big glob of yellow. And by the way, our zone runs from West Texas to Hawaii. If you look over under Alaska, there's a little yellow dot out there. That's Hawaii. Zone 27 we're paired with, and that's the blue up there. So, so every 2 years, one of our zones elects a director. So Vicki Pullitz has just been elected for the director to succeed our current director, Jarita. So every other year, and we as a district elect people to go to the zone nominating committee. Every district, by the way, has a council person that goes every third year to Evanston, actually Chicago, to look at the rules for Rotary. So that's what zones are about.
Thank you, Tom. That's very helpful. And then there's the Rotary Foundation itself at the very top of the organization that is really does a whole lot of things, but one of the important ones that we want to talk about tonight is the foundation stewardship. A question that donors may have is, how much of my giving actually supports the projects and programs of Rotary? Well, be assured that your contribution is properly stewarded. Rotary funding is monitored at many different levels. Funds are overseen by Rotary clubs, districts, and the Rotary Foundation staff and trustees. This gives you an idea of how we've been rated for nonprofits. A 4-star rating from the American Institute of Philanthropy. Charity Navigator has given us an A+, and they focus more on performance, accountability, and transparency. And then it's fully accredited by the Wise Giving Alliance of the Better Business Bureau. So Rotary is in the top 2% of US-based charities for many years in a row.
Okay, so
There's
now
a
we're gonna.
question in the chat on that. Either Deborah Tom or Governor Tom, what's the percentage of overhead on the giving in the foundation? Does anyone know?
And I don't know.
It's
Well,
very,
I think it's about 5%.
I have the same number as Governor Tom. It's about 5%.
thank you.
And some of, if it is needed, the world up to 5% can come out of the World Fund. That started when interest went away in 2008.
Right, thank you.
All right, thanks for that question. So there are many levels of giving in Rotary. We're going to start with the first rung of the ladder, EREY and sustained giving. These have been confusing terms, so we're going to take a little bit of a closer look. A couple of years ago, Rotary started a campaign for the annual fund called Every Rotarian Every Year. It was mentioned earlier. The campaign is based on the idea that if every Rotarian gives something, even if it's just $25 a year, there's nothing that can't be accomplished by Rotarians through the foundation. Then there's the sustaining level of giving, which represents the doughboy easily sustaining a great weight. So when that's when the minimum level of giving is $100 a year to the annual fund. When we used to do cruise tickets, that helped us remember to at least give $100 toward the annual fund because the cruise tickets were $100 for 10. Now that we don't have the sale of the cruise tickets, various clubs are finding different ways to remember to give at least $100 as a sustaining member. Just as a follow-up, Deborah mentioned earlier, only 67 clubs in our district. Out of 67, only 38 have an average of at least $100 per year. So we have a little bit of work to do on that issue.
The next level of giving is the Paul Harris Fellow Award. I'm not going to spend too much time because I'm pretty sure you're very familiar with this. It's Rotary math. You have 1 point for every dollar you give. Once you get 100 points, that qualifies you for a Paul Harris. 1,000, excuse me, yes. So you can give that all at once. You can give $100 for 10 years. And you can give a Paul Harris to another person and receive a Paul Harris yourself if you're using new money and not using points. Yeah, I think that a lot of the clubs are really making an effort to make sure that they are an all Paul Harris Fellow club. Everybody has at least one Paul Harris. And a nice way to do that is by giving points to maybe a new member. I was talking with Rick the other day, and they have a new member, and they're going to try to give him a match so that he can be a Paul Harris member quickly, and they can that way keep up their all Paul Harris recognition that they have, their banner. Yeah. Okay. It's really nice to be able to recognize Paul Harris Fellows. And one way that's done is, of course, with the Paul Harris pin. Now, this can be a little confusing. How many Paul Harrises does this represent, the one with the blue stones?
5.
5, yeah.
5. That's what you would think. But think back to when you got your first one. Did it have any stones?
No, it's 6.
No, no. Yeah, so that one was your first one. This is your second one, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Yeah. Now, this one here is called the, what do they call it? They have a funny name. Oh, Bridge the Gap pin. And so what they've done is do one with 3 red stones, which signifies $7,000, $8,000, and $9,000 that have been given. And the reason it doesn't have the 10,000 is because once you hit 10,000, you go to the next level called major donors. Okay, let's go to the next one. The Paul Harris Society is the next level of giving. And these dear folks have committed to give $1,000 annually. And currently, we have 167 members in our district, and they can designate their donation to go to any of the funds. And we need to give Yale a lot of kudos for really getting that program revved up. The coordinator for this coming year is going to be Mark Abramson. There's a really good PowerPoint on the subject of the Paul Harris Society on Rotary.org. Once you've identified somebody that would qualify or want to be a Paul Harris Society member, you might want to think about how you want to approach them about this. If they do decide they would like to become part of the Paul Harris Society, then help them fill out the paperwork. They need to send the paperwork in before they send the money. Otherwise, you know, that money will not, you know, the Rotary Foundation won't know who it came from. So the Rotary Foundation will notify them once they have received the paperwork, and then they can send it in. By the way, if they forget to send in their annual pledge, the foundation sends them gentle reminders.
Gentle.
How do you, give me some ideas, maybe a couple of you, how do you recognize, do something special for your Paul Harris Society members?
Well, in my club, anybody who achieves a Paul Harris Society level or higher, we have a big to-do over them at a club meeting, and we all come up and shake their hands or give them a hug, or we used to give them a hug. Now we give them an elbow, and we talk about, use that as an opportunity to talk about what the foundation supports. So it's not like just saying, well, Tom, come on up and get your pin.
Mm-hmm.
But ask them, why did you choose to support the foundation by being a Paul Harris Fellow, or by being a et cetera, et cetera.
That's really terrific, yeah.
Deborah, this is Tom. One of the things I think is very important is to make sure the recognition is appropriate. Not everybody wants to stand up and be recognized. I've had major donors that I just want the pin, or I want the certificate. I don't want a big deal. Lots of reasons. So it's important, I think, to have an honest discussion with the person that you're going to recognize, to find out what they're looking for and how would be an appropriate way to recognize them.
Well, excellent point. Yeah, you want to know, you want them to be comfortable. Yeah. So this is what the recognition for a Paul Harris Society looks like. It's the blue chevron, and they can wear that if they would like to. They can wear it along with other Rotary pins as well.
My battery's running low, but I'm plugged in.
Okay. So yeah, if there's a way that you can honor them, maybe in a big way, like what Taos does, our club does it in a big way also with a foundation dinner. We have them all stand, and it's just a dinner that celebrates the foundation period in all different aspects. Some people have rosters, they have asterisks next to them if their names, if they have Paul Harris or Fellow or a Paul Harris Society member. So yeah, there's different ways, and then they may or may not even want anything. So well taken.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the next level of recognition. Deborah referred to the 10,000 or more that characterizes the Bequest Society and major donors. So there are several different levels. The Bequest Society involves a future gift of $10,000 or more where you recognize a Rotary in your will. And the major donor is where a person gives 10,000 or more over the course of time, and they're referred to a major donor. And then there's the Arch Clump Society. We talked earlier about Arch Clump. This is the society named after him when the cumulative donations reach $250,000 or more. Each one of these has their special recognition pins and honors. Of course, the motivation for giving isn't the bling, but to doing good in the world. And I encourage you to identify members wearing those pins and just thank them for their recognition and contribution to the Rotary Foundation. A new designation that is coming to the district, which you'll hear more about in the future, is the Triple Crown donor. And that's the donor that is both a member of the Paul Harris Society, is a major donor of 10,000 or more, and the Bequest Society member. So that with those three, you become a Triple Crown donor, and there's a special pin and recognition for that.
So ways to increase giving. And as you can tell by now, being a foundation chair, that's one of your jobs. What you want to do is figure out what your giving goal is for your club. Talk to your incoming president and set a goal. And let me tell you, if you have your goal in the next couple days, Tom Walker will be your best friend, because that's how he makes his budget. He and Sonny, they're looking to see what the goals are, what that the clubs are putting together. Track your monthly giving and share it with your board so that they become involved in this whole effort also. Educate your club on what the money that's donated is actually going toward and how they're making a difference. We're going to talk about how you can do that in just a bit with these reports.
Okay, so how to support the Rotary Foundation, just the mechanics of it. We've talked about levels of giving. When you log into Rotary.org, you're going to see a donate button on the right side of the screen. Let me just go back to that. No, we don't have it. All right, so you're going to see a donate button on the right side of the screen. Once you click that donate button, after you've logged in and gone to My Rotary, you'll see this screen. It defaults to the annual fund. Apparently, the Rotary Foundation would prefer that you focus your donations on the annual fund, but you can choose however you're moved to donate and choose a different fund, as you can see them there. You can also choose an area of focus for that matter. Let's see.
You can also donate online.
Right, so that's donating online.
We can also choose to support a specific global grant.
Yes, you can do that through the World Fund. That's true.
Or the annual fund now. Yeah.
And Tom,
Yes.
it isn't only the Rotary Foundation who's encouraging annual fund donations. That's really how we get our DDF back in large measure.
The DDF is generated by that very first one that it defaults to. There are some other ones that say annual fund and like peace or water or health or whatever. If it has anything other than annual fund or share, then it is restricted and must be spent basically the same year that it is gathered. Therefore, it will not be around to come back to us in 3 years.
But you do have choices, yeah.
So you can enroll in Rotary Direct and have a certain amount taken out of your account, either checking or by credit card each month. In that way, you're giving online through Rotary.org. You can also download a form and just complete the form and do it the old-fashioned way and mail in a check. So lots of different ways to contribute.
And just to clarify, if you're contributing to a global grant, you need to have the approved number, and it's a 7-digit number. It'll be two digits with a year and then 5 digits. And you get to that up at the top of the page, you see it's kind of faded out there on the right, global grant. Do not try to do that through World Fund, please.
Right. And don't do it until you've received confirmation that the grant has been approved.
Well, I'll let you.
Yeah. So this is basically what the page looks like. Once you've started the process, as I mentioned, there's Rotary Direct, which automatically draws from your bank or credit card. And I guess I covered those other items. You can also make a one-time gift.
We had a question from Laura Gonzalez. This might be Deborah Tom or Governor Tom Walker. If you have a member who went straight to major donor but haven't received Paul Harris pins, how do we recognize them?
Yeah, it kind of bothered me because I knew we had a member when I was foundation chair who was a major donor, and it took me a while to figure out why I wasn't seeing his. And we finally donated some points to him, so he got a basic Paul Harris pin, but I've always kind of wondered why.
Yeah, I would have assumed that they would have gotten a Paul Harris pin.
You do need to apply for a Paul Harris. You don't
Well,
just automatically get it.
Oh.
The basic answer is if you have something like that, you need a pin, give me a call.
Tom Walker.
Actually, give him a call with any question at all. We have a question from Bill Hardy.
To be honest, once they're a major donor, if you give them points, they go nowhere. You just wasted them, because major donor is money only. It is not cash money or cash in points. So once they're a major donor, if you need a pin, and a lot of our folks like the +6 pin. That's the one with the sapphires, or maybe the one with the one ruby +7. Just let me know, and I can get them.
Great.
Thanks, Tom. All right, let's move on to resources. And this goes right to the heart of how to do your job as a foundation chair. You can find endless resources online at Rotary.org. There's a wealth of information for all Rotarians, no matter what your particular role might be, in fact. I believe it's a good idea to show new members how to get onto the Rotary.org and not just assume that they have a login. There's also a PDF, a manual on your role as foundation chair, and lots of resources in the Education Center, along with videos and PowerPoint presentations that you can download. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the foundation reporting.
Before we leave that, I just want to make a suggestion. For new members, most of them have mentors, you know, and that person that's educating the new member really needs to include getting them onto the Rotary website.
Yeah.
So many members have never been there. They just never bothered. So they need to be taught how to get in and use My Rotary. Okay.
In fact, I recommend that when you're going to meet with a new member, ask them to bring their laptop or bring their iPad or whatever it is they like to work on, so that when you're meeting with them, they can actually sit down and go to Rotary.org. And if you've ever logged into it, I'm sure all of you have, visited the Foundation Reports page, you've seen a very long list of Foundation reports. Yeah. So to get there, you're gonna log in and go to My Rotary, and then you're gonna hover over the Rotary Foundation. Don't click on it, just hover over it, and then put your cursor over the Foundation Reports, which is highlighted on this page here. Once you click on Foundation Reports, you're going to see a bunch of reports. And as you dig into those reports, you're going to see more behind those. Such as starting with your personal reports, like the Donor History Report. It tells you how much you've contributed or how much one of your members have contributed. So here's a partial screenshot of the reports page, including individual reports such as the Donor History Report, which will tell you how much you've given toward the different funds. We're going to look at that in a minute. And each Rotarian, as I mentioned, has access to their own individual reports. Additional sections include club reports, district, regional, even global trends and grant reports.
Not everybody will have access to that, but a foundation chair will have, or should have access to quite a few of these.
So let's just look at the club recognition summary. This is for your individual club. This happens to be the Rotary Club of Deming. And if you take a specific, say the first one on the list, Bill Anderson, recognition amount is $33,690. He has a Paul Harris +2. So that's a total of 3,000 points. He has a remaining balance of 1,690 points. Probably somebody used their points to give Bill Anderson his first Paul Harris, so he has 1,600 remaining instead of just 690 remaining. If you go to the next one down, Jean Arthur, 1,390 under the recognition amount, one Paul Harris, resulting in a balance of 390 points. So you can see just, person by person within your club who has a Paul Harris, who has no Paul Harris, so forth. So you kind of have an idea of where to focus your attention as a Paul Harris Foundation Chair, or as a Foundation Chair. Yeah. And then there's the MCR report, or the monthly contribution report. This is actually a district report that gives you each club and where they stand. So it's a great report if you tend to be kind of competitive and want to get your competitive juices flowing. I don't know of anybody in my family that's competitive.
I have to admit it. When I was foundation chair, I would look to see what our club giving was, and then I'd immediately go to Del Norte because they're a similar size club, or we were around the same size. So I just wanted to know, are we doing as good as Del Norte?
Yeah, I also have looked every year at our club, and most years we've been about third after Del Norte and Santa Fe.
Oh, is that right? Great.
We nosed into first place per capita last year.
All right, yeah, good job. So who else is competitive in this?
I wanted to, if this is a good time, I wanted to answer Debbie and Gordon's question about, does any club have a donor advised fund with TRF? And I'm unaware of a club in our district that does. But our club in Taos, we have a donor advised fund with the Taos Community Foundation, and the advisors are the president and president-elect of the club. And it's very simple. We give them the dough, they hold it until we say, give so much to this kid for a scholarship, give so much to that kid. It's much simpler than going through the Rotary Foundation if you have a responsible local foundation.
Well, just so you know, the Angel Fire Rotary Club does have a donor advised fund. We established it many years ago, and we just rediscovered it this year.
Oh, wow.
So all of the advisors to the donor advised fund have either deceased or moved away. So we have to send a letter to the Rotary Foundation declaring new advisors, but we do have one, and that does allow us to accept donations to the donor advised fund as a charitable contribution from individuals.
That's what's important.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for that. So you can see, we mentioned annual fund goal amount earlier. It's real important to get your goals in. Albuquerque Del Norte, for example, has a goal of 21,200. I don't know what year this is. I suspect it's a little bit older, but that was their goal at one time. And they've achieved 27% of that goal, as you can see in the goal percent achieved column. And then the red squares are around the annual fund per capita and annual fund month and year to date. So the percentage of goal achieved is a function of comparing the year to date with their goal. And most of these percentages are fairly low, which suggests to me that this report was done early in the fiscal year for that particular fiscal year. As time progresses, you'll see them in most cases meet or exceed their goal, hopefully. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think that's
Okay.
good. Oh, good. Now we've come to my favorite report, the club fundraising analysis. And you see how clean this is. It's just a really nice graphic. And it gives you a history of what your goals were, giving goals were for the last 5 years. So in 2018-19, actually the last 2 years, our goal has been 20,000. And then we can look and see how we're doing with that. And we exceeded it last year. This year, we're not quite there because we've got several of our Paul Harris Society members that we've asked them to hold off on giving their pledge until we get a particular global grant approved. So once we've addressed that, then hopefully that will go up. And then you see over here total contributions. This first one was just for the annual fund. This is total. So there's a couple thousand more in there. And so that's most likely related to donations to the polio fund. This graph here is also, let's see if you can make that. Can you do that? This graph. This shows what the goals for giving were, and then what the actual was. So that was kind of cool. And so what I did was every board meeting, a monthly board meeting, I would make copies of this to include in the board packet. So the board members were very aware of how we're doing. It has your annual fund per capita giving for your club. And so we're at 155 this year, and the district average is 109. So that makes us happy. Our membership, however, seems to be going down. So we're going to need a little work there. And then we can see the EREY members. These, if you recall, somebody that's given, people that have given at least $25 to the annual fund. And 70 of our 95 have. Sustaining members, at least $100 to the annual fund. We only have 51. And part of that, I'm guessing, has to do with not meeting as we did and reminding people, you know, to give to the annual fund. One of the things that we've done to try to improve it is give them the option of being billed for the sustaining membership when they pay their dues, and just separate that out. But they can just write the check and we'll take out the extra 100. And then the other great thing is it tells you how many people are eligible to be Paul Harris Society members, but that aren't yet. So it's just kind of keep an eye on that. So we've talked a lot about giving, we've talked about impact, and we want you to be able to inspire your club members and potential Rotarians. Tell them your story. And someone else mentioned this earlier, you know, why did you become a Rotarian? Why do you give? Is there a particular project that you feel really great about? And lead by your own example of giving. Rotary just does some amazing work all around the world and in your communities. So talk about it. This is your incoming district foundation committee team. Of course, incoming district governor Sonny Kellerman, yeah, I'm sure is either a regular part of this or an adjunct part of this. Tom Walker for your foundation chair, Peter Fowley for the district grants, Allison Pinnell for the Peace Scholars, Mark Abramson for the Paul Harris Society coordination, and Linda Woodward for In Polio Now. So those are your resources. If you need a speaker or if you have a question, that's who to contact.
I'm right here.
So
you can come here.
We've gone over the roles several times. You can just kind of look at that and just see how you're doing. What I am interested is, based on what you've heard tonight, how being a foundation chair in a small club, I think, has its own challenges. And I'd like to hear from some of the clubs that have 25 members or less as to how you see your role in a small club. What is possible? Do we have any small clubs represented?
I think we do.
Yeah, Deborah, my club has 16 members, and I've been foundation chair for about 3 years. But the one thing we do, we always do education, foundation education at a meeting. And then also when we talk about giving to the foundation, after we have a dedicated meeting, I do a personal letter to each member and tell them our goals, which one is to keep 100% Paul Harris fellows in the club for new members, you know. And then also that we want to average at least $100 per member. In that letter, and we go through the education process first so they understand it, but it has their Rotary number. If they're a Paul Harris fellow, like on the report that Tom was showing, shows the amount of money, Paul Harris plus 2 or 3, whatever it is. I noticed on one of those he was talking about, they only need, I think it was $310 money in to become another level of Paul Harris. Also, you have a column for your points, and that's where we use those points to make wives, children, Paul Harris fellows in our club by using those points. Then also, our newest member gave $100 this year recently to the foundation. So we used 900 points, and we'll make him a Paul Harris fellow at our installation dinner. But the whole key is education, and when we have education, we talk about the benefit projects we participated in, and how we get our money from the foundation and what the benefit is to the club.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the aspects here was 1, 2, 3, 4, number 4 here talks about some of the subcommittees that the foundation chair probably ought to be a member of. Doesn't have to lead them, but should probably be at least a member of. If you have an international committee, a grants committee, a donor recognition committee, a foundation dinner planning, those kind of things, you know, just to help steer things, keep them in the right direction.
And the committee can consist of one person, or one person can handle multiple committees. We are we're exceeded our hour and a half, but I want to get an opportunity to answer any questions that we might not have covered. If you have, yeah. So let's just, we just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being Rotarians, and thank you for your commitment to the Rotary Foundation. With that, let's open it up to any questions that you may have, and if we can answer them, we will, or we'll draw on one of the district leaders to help us answer it. Jeff, do you want to unmute everybody and just see if there's any?
I can only mute everybody. They can.
Okay.
They will unmute.
So if you have a question, just unmute
I think
yourself.
you've done a good job handling them as we went.
Yeah. Debbie and Gordon, go ahead.
Yeah, I still have one unanswered question that I submitted in the chat. We just got an email indicating that if we had any unspent district designated fund grant money, that we could reallocate it to a COVID-19 project. We know that there is a global grant, Deborah just talked about it, that is essentially a COVID-19 project in Guatemala, I believe. So we want to know, if we can reallocate our unspent district designated funds to that project and how to do it.
I'm gonna let's let Tom Walker answer that one.
Well, we're in the process of doing that for last year's grants and this year's. The problem with last year's grants is there aren't that many that are open yet. Or still.
Ours is. We made the mistake of partnering with the village government, and you know how it is when you partner with government.
Yeah, it has to be completed by the end of the month.
No, we still have another year to spend the money.
Well, then it's this year's grant.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's correct. Yes.
And what we need to know is if you intend on doing that, you must let us know because we have to file the report with the Rotary Foundation so we get next year's grants.
Right.
Well, that's what the date of the 16th, I believe it was, is about. And as we explained during grant training, it's really pretty simple. You go in, you file a progress report and say, we've done what we can do on this one, or we can't do anything, or what the deal is, and would like to redirect these funds to whatever. And Peter and the foundation committee will take a look at that, and the turnaround time is generally about 24 hours. So,
well, how do we specifically define what we would like to redirect the funds to? I don't know what to call it.
I know what to call it.
You do?
Yeah.
What do we call it?
It was the Guatemala project that the Santa Fe Rotary Club established for PPE and ventilators.
This is only district grant money. District grants can only be spent on district grants.
So we can't allocate it to a global grant.
As soon as we put the stamp on it, it is marked that way forever. And it must be spent on district grants. If it is not, we have to return it. And then the next year it comes back and we can spend it on whatever we want to.
And the reallocation has to be to a COVID-19 related project, correct? Or not?
Let me say this. Potter Stewart, a Supreme Court justice, commenting on a case involving pornography, said, "I don't know how to describe it, but I know it when I see it."
And this is it.
COVID-19 is kind of in that bent. So if you can't do your project, then you need to do something else or give the money back. So
right. Okay. We're discussing it. We're discussing it as a club board. So we will make a decision
on all of these grants. The trustees made some very specific one-time exclusions on it. And for district grants, the exclusion is you can expense back to March 15, even though the grant hadn't been approved yet.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Okay. So just get in there, file a progress report, tell Peter what you want to do, and we'll get back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you taking your time this evening. We're way past the end of our allocated hour and a half, so we should probably just say goodnight. But if you have any questions or follow-up, feel free to
ask the district. No,
feel free to ask Tom Walker.
We love the topic of the foundation, so we'll help in whatever way we can.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeff, Governor Tom.
Tom and Deborah.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Super,
Bye-bye.
really super job.
Thank you.